Welcome back to Gendered. This episode is about America's maternity leave policy and the workplace. So, public life in the United States has been historically defined in masculine terms, meaning that we are living in a patriarchal society. For this reason, it is much harder for us to have gender equality in this country. Gender equality entails not simply integrating women into the public world on the same grounds as men, but transforming public structures and societal lifestyles to reflect the needs and concerns of women as well. A woman's ability to give birth has been used to deny women their full rights as citizens, while abortion is a controversial and hot topic right now. Many people are not focused on women who are having children. And the problem here is that women in this country do not have the proper accommodations to have children. One major accommodation this country lacks is paid maternity leave. Maternity leave is the period of time when a mother stops working because she is about to have, just had, or even adopted a baby. While we most commonly hear the term maternity leave, sometimes it is called family leave, family medical leave, pregnancy leave, or parental leave, or even paternity leave in the case of the father. The U.S. does not have a standard maternity leave length, nor does it have a standard policy for paid leave at all. 60% of employers give 12 weeks of maternity leave, and only 33% give more than 12 weeks. However, this includes paid and unpaid leave. Only about 58% of companies pay a salary or wage during some or all of this leave. So in the United States, the ability for a pregnant or parenting person to take a paid leave depends on the internal policies of a private company. It's a neoliberal approach to maternity leave. Just let the private sector and the market control it. But actually, it can have negative economic effects when there is an absence of maternity leave. There are benefits to maternity leave regarding economic welfare, in the form of enhanced labor force attachment, wage stability, and a lesser need for public welfare. Also, there is also health benefit arguments to be made in favor of maternity leave, such as lower infant mortality rates, which according to the CDC is currently in the United States has a rate of 6.1 deaths per 1,000 infants, while in Sweden there is a mortality rate of 2.1 deaths per 1,000 infants. Other benefits to maternity leave are a decrease in hospitalizations for the mother and infants, and an increase in initiation and duration of breastfeeding. However, your workplace may or may not have an official maternity leave policy, and even if it does, unfortunately, it may or may not be paid. If it is paid, that doesn't necessarily mean it is fully paid. Some companies offer partially paid leave or a program that may technically be a sick leave or short-term disability policy that pays you during your leave of absence. Only 16% of companies offered fully paid maternity leave in a survey of employers with 50 or more employees, only about 6% offered full paid during maternity leave. And in this country, about 23% of employed women return back to work only within 10 days of giving birth. In fact, most American women receive no pay during their maternity leave and instead rely on federal parental leave laws such as the Family Medical Leave Act or FMLA to protect their entitled to return to her position after a period of medical leave or absence without a penalty in pay or position. Under this law, a woman working for a company with 50 or more employees can, in many instances, take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave or to care for a newborn child or newly adopted child. However, this is not available for men or paternity leave. In many short-term disability insurances, cover 50 or 100% of salaries for approximately 6 weeks of postpartum absences. Though some may pay out longer if you are experiencing medical complications or have had a C-section. The amount of STD pay you receive depends on your company's specific policy and typically based on your tenure at the company and is completely separate issue from your healthcare benefits and coverage. For most women, this is the only pay that they get, and it's only in most of the time it only covers half of their salary. Now, in the United States Supreme Court case of Ragsdale versus Wolverine Worldwide, 2002, the court invalidates a Labor Department regulation requiring employers to provide additional leave time to employees in cases where the employer fails to notify employees at the outset that the employee's leave counts against the 12 weeks guaranteed under FMLA. The court finds that the regulation upsets the balance struck by Congress between employer and employee in enacting FMLA. So in this case specifically, a woman who had to take 30 weeks off of medical leave for a medical condition was told by her company Wolverine Worldwide that her 12 weeks of FMLA counted towards her 30 weeks of medical leave. And so she no longer had 12 extra weeks of FMLA for maternity leave. And the United States Supreme Court agreed with Wolverine Worldwide. Basically, within this case, getting sick is not an option if you want to have a baby. And you see that this connection with the government and the private sector, and how the private sector has constantly been able to get away with so many regulations because the government has been allowing them to. But if you look at this in an international level, the United States is the only country amongst 41 developed nations that does not mandate any paid leave for new parents. In the country of Estonia, they offer more than a year and a half of paid leave for new parents, which is by far the highest benefits provided by any countries represented. A number of countries, such as Bulgaria, Hungary, Japan, Lithuania, Australia, Slovakia, Latvia, Norway, and Slovenia, offer over a year's worth of paid leave as well. In 20 out of 41 countries, the majority of all paid leaves available is allocated to maternity leave. In fact, in 6 countries, Canada, Israel, Slovakia, Switzerland, Costa Rica, and New Zealand, maternity leave accounts for all available paid leave related to the birth or care of a child. However, these countries do not have any leave available for fathers. Now, Sweden, which has known to be the leader in paid parental leave, allows parents to have 480 days of parental leave for each child. If you have twins, you are entitled to an additional 180 days. So the parents are encouraged to split these days equally between them. And so what Sweden does is that you have 480 days, and so the mother or one parent would have 240 days, and then the other parent would have 240 days, and they would switch off between each other. So one parent would stay for 240 days, go to work, and then the other parent will be at home with the child for 240 days. However, it is possible for one parent to take up to 390 days of the 480 days. And to do this, the other parent just has to transfer these days to the other parent. The only exception to this rule is for single parents with sole custody, can take all 480 days for themselves. So during the first 3 months of the new baby's life, the father is entitled to be home for 10 days. And these days are in addition to the 480 parental leave days. In addition to these first 10 days, both parents are able to be home together for 30 days during the child's first year. These are called double days because you get 2 days of parent leave deducted, 1 day for each parent. However, as of January 2019, the second parent can take general parental leave from the 60th day before the due date to join his or her partner during prenatal visits. Parental leave can also be used for school and preschool introductions. In Sweden, parental leave is a legal right for all parents in Sweden. This means companies cannot deny your request for leave for any reasons. In addition to the 480 days of parental leave per child, companies are also bound to allow you to reduce your working hours by an additional 25%. Now, when looking back at the United States, we do have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978. This was enacted after Title VII, which explicitly prevented discrimination based on sex. Congress passed the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, or the PDA, in 1978, making discrimination based on pregnancy or pregnancy-related conditions illegal under the PDA. So, a case that challenged the PDA was the AT&T Corporation versus Hulteen case in 2008. The court in this United States Supreme Court in this case held that employers provided less retirement credit for pregnancy leave than for other medical leaves prior to the 1978 Pregnancy Act are not required to adjust their pension plan retroactively when female employers affected by the plan start collecting their pensions. The court's reasoning for this was that since AT&T's seniority system was not discriminatory at its adoption, it's limiting seniority credit for the time taken during pregnancy did not constitute unlawful discriminations. Rather, the limitation of seniority credit for pregnant women could only violate the PDA or Title VII if AT&T's system had been unlawful at its adoption. Now, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg dissented on this rationale, and Justice Breyer joined her by saying that AT&T violated the PDA and Title VII when it did not discontinue reliance upon a benefit calculation system which contained pregnancy-based seniority classifications. However, after this case, there haven't been any Supreme Court cases dealing with pregnancy or maternity leave to this day. However, the United States Congress does have a current bill going on which has been circling the Senate, which is the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And in this act, it says it's unlawful for employment practices for a covered entity to not make reasonable accommodations to the known limitations related to the pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions of a qualified employee, unless such covered entity can demonstrate that the accommodations would impose an undue hardship on the operations of the business of such covered entities. It is also unlawful for an employer to require a qualified employee affected by pregnancy, childhood, related medical conditions to accept an accommodation other than any reasonable accommodation. I don't like the word affected in here because it's saying that a pregnancy is a woman is affected by a pregnancy, and this just undermines the fact that this is life coming into this country, into this planet. Like, a pregnancy should not be an effect or a problem. Moving on, an employer it is unlawful for an employer to deny employment opportunities to a qualified employee if such denial is based on the need of the covered entity to make reasonable accommodations to known limitations related to the pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions of a qualified employee. Fourth, it is unlawful to require a qualified employee to take leave, whether paid or unpaid, if another reasonable accommodation can be provided to the known limitations related to the pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions of a qualified employee. And lastly, it is unlawful to take adverse action in terms, conditions, or privileges of employment against a qualified employee on the account of the employee requesting or using a reasonable accommodation to the known limitations related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions of the employee. So, as of today, there is no saying when this bill will be enacted into a law. So far, it has been read twice and referred to the Committee of Health, Education, Labor, and Pension. And so far, there only has been 2 votes. So my final thoughts on this is that the United States is behind every developed country in the world when it comes to maternity or paternity leave. It seems that only the rich can afford to start a family in this country, and women are being punished for the ability to give birth through jobs and the lack of pay. This is what happens in a patriarchal society, and overall, this is what it means to be gendered in the United States. In the next podcast, I will be discussing sexual harassment in the workplace and how women are gendered by losing the ability to move ahead and get promoted. This is Gendered. Thank you. Welcome back to Gendered. This episode is about America's maternity leave.